Still Snoop Dogg and D.I.
Hello and welcome to Villanova Tip Time, the Villanova men's basketball pregame show. I'm your host, Chris Notaro. We are here presented by Homefield Apparel as part of the Nova Insider Network. Of course, promo code Nova Insider for a decent percentage off there for all your apparel needs over at Homefield. And we're here on a big Saturday in the Big East. I'm trying not to draw my eyes over here where I've got this Providence-Georgetown game going down to the wire at the Dunk. Yes, I know it has a new name, but I'm never going to not call it the Dunk. In Cooley's return, the scenes out of Providence this morning were absolutely wild. Good for the Big East that, I saw a lot of chatter about ESPN Game Day being in Arkansas this morning, which I don't think a lot of people in the sort of national college basketball fandom are really super keyed in on that one. But everybody in the Big East is well keyed in on Cooley's return to Providence. And that one is coming down to the wire here as Providence is up by 2 with a couple minutes left. I know for many of you that normally would be watching, maybe watching that. For those of you that are here right now, thank you for side screening it. But we are here on a big Saturday in the Big East as Villanova takes their show on the road to the vaunted Hinkle Fieldhouse to take on the Butler Bulldogs. We'll talk about the week that was. We'll reintroduce this Butler team, and we'll get you on your way for tip-off at the top of the hour over on Fox Sports 1. So let's talk about the week that was. Of course, close loss to UConn last weekend, losing by 1 at home, and then getting absolutely smoked by St. John's at the Garden midweek. And all of a sudden, the Cats have lost 3 in a row, and the fan base is free-falling. A lot of fair criticisms being levied at the program with the struggling state of the offense specifically, which looks lost. But I also find that it is reaching some hyperbolic levels as the narrative has changed so massively for just a week ago. And while it's super disappointing to see Villanova in the bubble conversation, which is not where we expected to be, even just a couple of short weeks ago, there's still a lot of season left. And so you don't want to kind of give the all hope is lost mentality. You want to see this team turn it around, notch some wins, and hopefully be dancing come March. We'll talk more about this in a moment, of course. Shout out Eric Dixon, who never seems to lose his fire and intensity, regardless of the situation. And even if he may seem frustrated, which is also kind of rare, he's always bringing the heat. There were definitely body language concerns with the rest of the team on Wednesday night at the Garden when they were getting beat by St. John's pretty bad in the second half. Outside of Eric Dixon, who seemed like he was the only one that was still trying to rally them back. It was the Big East tournament before last that Villanova was down, 20 in the Garden in the first round of the Big East tournament and was able to rally back. Of course, very different teams here, obviously different coaches for both teams. But Eric Dixon was playing like, hey, we haven't lost this game yet, but it seemed like everybody else had kind of given up on the game. And that's something that, frankly, Villanova fans are not accustomed to seeing from their team and is very worrisome as this team has work to do if they're going to get back squarely into the NCAA tournament seeding field without having to be right on that cusp of, last 4 in, last 4 buys, et cetera, et cetera. The good news is that we have a ton of remaining quad 1 opportunities for Villanova. They have, I think, 7 remaining. So they absolutely control their own destiny. Your 2 biggest concerns to actually take control of that destiny, though, are going to be, 1, the offensive scheming and sets, much being made of the fact that almost the whole team is performing under their career scoring and efficiency averages. I would say this team is not playing a particularly pretty brand of basketball right now. In fact, quite the opposite. It's at times very difficult to watch on the offensive side of the ball. There's not a lot of flow. There's not a lot of rhythm. Guys look confused. You don't see players being used in roles that you would expect for their particular individual style of play. And there are a lot of legitimate questions being levied by the fans as the responses coming from the coaching staff and the team in media availability are, frankly, again, I keep using the word uninspired, but to just keep hearing about defense and rebounding is something that I know a lot of the podcasts we follow, a lot of our friends, in the Nova Insider Network, but really just the general discourse around the team is definitely keying in on the defense and rebounding talk when the offense just looks so lost. beyond the offense, I do think the defense has, from where we started at the beginning of the season, you saw a defense that wasn't really a lot of new pieces, a lot of new players, wasn't really gelling. I think if the offense had been coming along even at all, the defense would probably be getting more flowers for certain improvements that have been made. But the lapses in effort, the kill shot metric, which I know people are all over, are definitely really concerning. The amount of runs that Villanova is letting up is almost at a historically bad pace. And then simply put, I've been loosely keeping track of just how many times I'm saying, well, it was a close game, and then in the last 10 minutes, they just kind of stopped scoring. That's happened at least 3 times since the calendar year turned. Of course, one of them they were able to hold on to and win barely against Xavier at home, and a win is a win. But that effort concern down the stretch is really, really troubling. So with the fan base morale at a recent low, it would be a heck of a time for the Cats to show up firing and overcome its demons in a Hinkle building that has been mostly unfriendly to Villanova over the years since Butler joined the Big East. I think Butler's won 4 out of the last 6 at Hinkle. I do want to shout out that one sick Darren Hilliard buzzer beater like 10 years ago or so. That was awesome. So maybe let's channel that today, because with the Cats coming off of 3 losses in a row, reeling, as I said earlier, the fan base just feels like it's in a free fall. I don't think anybody was super pumped to see at Hinkle on the schedule here as a get-right game, because it is certainly not that. And why not? Well, let's talk about introducing Butler, who's much improved under Thad Matta in his second year, coming in at 13-7 to this game. They're not definitely not predicted to be like in the tournament field, yet they'll have an opportunity to play their way there with as many quad 1 opportunities remaining, just about as Villanova, as the whole Big East has tons of quad 1 opportunities remaining. And I think Butler turned some heads when they beat then 11th ranked Marquette at Marquette a few weeks ago. So Butler is by no means the pushover that they were towards the end of the Laval Jordan era, or even last year when they weren't that great in Thad Matta's first year. Looking much improved coming in at 13-7 with a season that's still very much alive if they can notch some quality wins, and they're going to have some good opportunities coming up immediately. So this Butler team is going to play with a very guard-heavy flow. They have 4 guards averaging double digits, led by Pierre Brooks with almost 17 points a game, Jamil Telford, DJ Davis, and familiar face Posh Alexander, transferring from St. John's, all averaging between 11 and 13 points a game for this Butler team, with a vastly improved offensive efficiency from last year, and an okay defense to go along with it. But like I said, they'll need a couple of more big quality wins, and you can bet that they're not overlooking Villanova, as they're going to have 5 full days off before they head to Creighton next Friday, and they have big games. They have at Creighton next Friday, and then a couple, I think early the week following, they're at UConn. So Butler knows that this 3-game stretch is huge for them, and they can get the momentum started with a big home win against Villanova today. So what are some of the things that I want to see from the Cats today as far as just keys? Number one, I mean, it's so simple. Like, I feel like these are such silly things to say as far as keys for the game, but this is absolutely where we are, in that the first one is going to be hashtag attitude and effort. You saw me. I just peeked at the Providence score, and it looks like Providence is pulling away in this one. So good for them. Good real victory and moral victory for the Providence faithful. I will admit that I was rooting for them, although I will say it got so venomous that it almost allowed Georgetown to reclaim a moral high ground. But not quite. Still rooting for Providence, so glad they were able to notch this victory. Back to the issue at hand here for the Villanova Wildcats. What I was saying is, I feel really silly saying this is the key to the game, but this is where we're at after that game against St. John's on Wednesday. It's about attitude and effort. Without that, this team is cooked. If we see another effort like we saw on Wednesday night, particularly in the second half, and there was just that give up down the stretch, if you think the fan base is free falling now, the only thing that would prevent it from being way worse is just basic disinterest. Because I think a lot of real Villanova basketball fans who have sort of hung on every game of this team, especially from my generation, where people are in their mid to late 30s, people have families, people have kids, it's hard to prioritize the time to sit down and watch every single game like many of you do. And I think with the effort concerns, if we see another game like we saw Wednesday, you're seeing faithful fans grow a little bit disinterested, which is absolutely not what you want to see if you think about it just from an overall programming and business perspective. If you think about Villanova basketball as a business entity. And so I think you really want to see the team come out with attitude and effort. You want to see that to prove that, the coaching staff hasn't lost the attention of the players in too negative of a way. Of course, everybody's frustrated, but you have to expect this coaching staff has to find a way to rally the guys to really bring the heat, and just stay true to their word. Like, even if the shots aren't falling, control the effort, control the intensity, which is something that we haven't seen from this team in a lot of these losses. So as far as keys to the game on the specific basketball X's and O's, I think rebounding is a huge opportunity today. Butler's injured in the front court. The Cats can take advantage of that if they bring the heat on the board. So this is regardless of whether you figure out your stuff on offense, you can really key in on defensive rebound like you've been talking about today and make the game easier on yourself. Lastly, and again, this is one of those silly things I feel like that has to be said out loud, but it must be said about this team. Make open shots. You got to make what they give you. When the lid is on, this Villanova team has lost. They really haven't been able to gut out wins in years past of Nova teams who have been able to gut out wins when the shots aren't falling. Sure, it was always shoot them up, sleep in the streets, generally speaking, but still there were occasions where maybe it was a slow offensive night and Villanova was able to rock fight somebody to death and still come out with a W. We have not seen that from this team. We have not seen that in the Kyle Neptune era. And so we want to see, even if you can't immediately fix the offense overnight, we want to see this team be able to gut out a win some way, somehow, because they have to start stacking wins if they want to bring this season back from the brink. In any case, I was hanging out with my son, who's 2.5. His name, as many of you know, his name is John Wright Notaro. His middle name is Wright, after the great Jay. Also, architect Frank Lloyd, because John's grandfather is an architect, obsessed with Frank Lloyd Wright. So kind of a double meaning there for us in the family. But I was hanging out with him before tip time here. He's down for a nap now. He'll wake up sometime around halftime, and he's going to be excited to come watch Villanova ball with me. And that's an exciting way to spend a Saturday. If you're part of my generation, if you're a young father, you know that feeling of excitement of trying to pass that on to your kid, your family, and really feel that community and that family around this team. And I think the whole community is really reeling to see these Cats team rattle off a couple of wins here. And it would be a huge help if they can do it in a place like Hinkle, where I think a lot of people are queasy coming into this building on this stretch. So while we will see you on Tuesday before Villanova's rematch against Marquette. This time that game is going to be at the Finn. I hope it's going to be on a brighter note in brighter spirits, looking ahead to these Q1 opportunities versus the alternative where, I think the discourse might stay pretty sour if we see a loss in this one for Villanova. So as always, the Nova Coaster can go one of two very different ways today. And I'm trying to bring the good vibes that we see a good Saturday, a good Catterday, and that the Villanova men's basketball team is able to take the lids off the hoop at Hinkle. So for now, I'd say let's go find your favorite Saturday beverage and your preferred seat on the couch, because, ladies and gentlemen, it's tip time.